everybody, this is Big Bear. Welcome to another episode of the Beehooligans podcast. It's the Be Smart podcast episode. We call them the Beehooligans. We normally have our fellas down in Louisiana. That'd be JP the B-Man. That's Jeff Armstrong. There he is.
How y'all doing? Hola.
Normally we have Shawi, Bruce Sharwoff, but he's out there getting his typhus taken care of, so he may pop in a little bit later. It's possible. We also have a fellow from way over in the hillbilly country. Call him Yappy or Travis.
No, you're going to have to get this straight. I'm in redneck country, okay? If I was at my family's house in West Virginia, I would be hillbilly country.
Speaking of
Virginia,
but
he's from Chicago.
From Chicago?
Yeah, originally from Chicago. So if I go up there to visit my aunt and uncle, then I'm just a darn Yankee.
Yeah, he's a transplanted redneck.
And speaking of Virginia, we got somebody's going to be transplanted over there soon, and that's our newbie, our apprentice, Anthony G.
Yo.
Also known as Anthony Gaines.
Up?
Retired firefighter, getting into beekeeping, not only as a hobby, but he wants to get into the business of it. So we're going to introduce him to all the wonders of dealing with bees on a so-called pro level. That's what we're working on today. So we were talking a little bit, and we got a special guest. He's going to be here. We keep trying to work this out. Next week, he says he's going to manage it. He's a little behind schedule because of the weather. So we came up with the topic of, we got onto Trapouts. JP, you missed some of that. You just called in. And we had a nice, fun intro kind of a thing starting on doing Trapouts and all the little things that go into it. So we want to kind of go from there. And Yappy and I was kind of going in about a new technique that I'm going to try. I want to play with this synthetic brood pheromone to try to draw queens out a little bit quicker. It's called Super Brood. And I thought I'd play with it, test it a little bit, see how well that might help or might not, who knows, to instead of putting a frame of live brood in a trap out box, to spray some of that and put it either on a baggie or on a frame, or I don't know, try different ways of applying it and try to get that queen to draw out a little bit sooner. So based on that discussion, we got going into different ideas of how to draw the queen out and how long to do a trap out and how long to leave the box. And we started getting into all kinds of stuff. And of course, because we're all in different areas and regions, we have different pest issues or how bad some of those, some people are more affected by small hive beetle, others less, or other issues going on with that. So we kind of want to explore how do we, each of us, look at and try to do trap outs where in our own respective neck of the woods. Now, I know you do a lot of cutouts. You do a lot of cutouts, JP. And you do some good swarm captures. We get to see all your videos on them. I don't get to see a whole lot of JP videos on trap outs, though. Where do you stand on trap outs, bud?
Well, first of all, not a lot of people down here are willing to go through what needs, the process. It can be time consuming. And then, there's always where the structure or tree or whatever is located in regards to, where you live. So, just about everybody that does them, I'm sure they would love to have them just right around the corner or something like that from where they live. So sometimes they're not practical because of distance. But, hey, no, I actually have a video I'm about to work on soon. One I did in a building that had two chimneys, and I did a trap out over both two stacks. But when I showed up, one of them was getting robbed. So, and well, without going into detail, so wound up doing a trap out on one of them, and they did make a queen. So they're kicking. But as far as trap outs go, I mean, I think I think most people, I believe most people would agree, they're kind of a last resort. But attempt to approach one if, it's impossible, absolutely impossible, okay, to perform a removal. Because, if you can't get that comb out, that's roach bait and, small hive beetle bait and wax moth and things like that. But, there are situations where you cannot perform a removal. And, no, I think it's, particularly from, the amount of removals that I do when I have an opportunity to do some trap outs, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's a little detour. I still get to fool with bees. They're kind of each one is unique. You never know exactly how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
You don't know how big the colony is. So that has a lot to do with how long you have to leave your cone on and how far you have to take the process down the road.
Right.
But
how long do you usually leave a trap out go?
I mean, I'm a fan of them. If you have to do them, do them. I do see, and we'll probably get into the mechanics a little bit, but every now and then I'll see somebody that makes a cone and they might have duct tape or something all over it, and when the bees come out, sometimes they'll go back in. So I think the idea with the mesh of any type, whether it be window screen or hallway cloth, it confuses them, and so I think you need to stick with that basic premise.
Yeah.
But and then there's the Hogan style, so that's a whole other topic right there. But anyway, I'll shut up for now.
No, you're doing fine. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you caught it because I think I might have interrupted you a little bit, but I was asking how long do you normally, on average, let a trap out go?
Well, I mean, again, I don't do a whole ton of them, but
right.
I mean, as a rule, okay, let's back up a minute. You mentioned about parasites and small hive beetles being one in particular. I know people in Florida who the last step of the trap out. Okay, you don't have bees coming out of the cone anymore. Okay, for some time. Okay, now you have let's say you have a viable colony with a queen laying in your catch box. Mm-hmm. Okay, now what do you do? Okay, well, if you can, you want to sequester that queen so she can't leave. I don't think she will anyway if she's laying, but it is a good idea to sequester her, whether that means putting an excluder on or caging her with a queen cage or clip or whatever. And then that last step is removing the cone and actually allowing the bees to go back to the void space that you just trapped them out of and rob what honey's in there out. Okay? But I know some people in Florida that cannot do that last step because as the bees are exiting and the numbers are decreasing, the small hive beetles just get out of hand and slime up everything, and so you want to put a bunch of fermented honey, and so they actually a lot of times forgo that step, right, and just remove the cone when there's no activity coming out anymore. So, but anyway,
no, that's cool. Now Yappy, me and him were talking about something similar to that. Yep, what you were mentioning on the way you approach your trap outs time wise and that process that you look forward to when you're trying to account for as the brood emerges and you're getting them all out and that population is coming out of the void, the tree or whatever, it's starting to trickle down and the things you want to look for. Why don't you? Where were you going with that?
All right. Give me just a second because there's a lot to talk about here, but I want to step back because JP made a great point. Right. In the theoretical process of doing a trap out, I've known a lot of beekeepers that have the old theory that you allow either one of the things is that you bring a hive unrelated to the one that you just removed from that void space. When you're done, you take that hive back to your apiary, but you bring another one of your hives back to that location and allow them to rob out that hive. Regardless of the part of that, let me ask this question. Do you have experience with allowing any beehive to rob out that void where you've just removed the bees? Do you do it during nectar flow, or do you do it after a nectar flow? And my question for bringing this up, and I'll tell you why, is if there's a nectar flow on, how well do you see the bees actually robbing out a hive that's already got all that in there?
Great point, Yappy. Yeah, it really. Obviously, if you're in a dearth or if there's hardly any flow, that would, if you've got a heavy flow going on, then yeah, I would agree with your thought process here. They may not, go back again. I guess you can give them an opportunity if you want, but I guess it all depends. But
well, the reason I bring that up is because that's always been something.
Yeah.
Well, that's always been something that has just kind of really, I don't know if I want to say stumped me or annoyed me in the process, because let's think about this in theory. We all have beehives that are sitting out in our yards, except for a few of those that are maybe listening to this podcast who are wanting to get into this, or, you only have one hive, so this doesn't make sense. But the point being is that right now we've all got hypothetically 10 boxes sitting in our yard. If we took all the bees out of that, there's going to be maybe one or two bees that go check it out. But for the most part, when those bees are in our yard right now, my bees are foraging. They're looking for that nectar. They're not in the mode to say, I don't have anything out there, but I'm going to go find something. So if it was just the case to where they would smell that nectar or honey in the hive next to it, bees or no bees, there would be constant robbing. So I disagree with the thought that, okay, it's the middle of flow. I've got a successful trap out. I've got my queen. We'll put that as the parameters. And now I'm going to turn around and allow these bees to rob it back when there's very minimal, to me, smell that's coming out of that void space to go against the major honey flow that's right down the road of privet or wildflowers or trees or whatever. So if in my personal feeling, to do it properly, I would note that location and tell that customer, I'm going to seal this void space up so that we don't have another swarm come in between now and the middle of July, which would be my personal dearth. And then at that point, I would say, now I'm going to come back. I'm going to reopen this void up where they were going in and hopefully see if I can get my bees to rob that honey back out at that point. But location, like what JP said, is a major factor. You try doing that in Florida and you're probably going to have a major problem on your hands. So it's just one of the logistics that I wanted to kind of throw that curveball in there with what we've been told on how to do it versus maybe locational problems and time of flow.
Lots of good points. Now I do know, at least the three of us here, we do this this is our business, what we do for a living. It's a professional thing. So you have the hobbyist trap out. They've got time. They've got less responsibility in terms of they don't have, a schedule of things they have to get back to the next one. They may only be working on one or two removals at a time, or trap outs, or swarm captures, or whatever. They have more time to be flexible with, etc. Also, they don't have maybe necessarily the same expectations from paying customers necessarily. So if I walk out to do a tree or something, and or say a house, and they by rights should be cut out, the nest should be removed. state of Nebraska says there's a bee nest in a wall or a void that's in a structure like that, you got to remove the nest. It's supposed to be done. But like JP says, there's some situations where, for whatever reasons, we're not able to get in there, be it a tree or they won't let you deal with the house cutting into it. I've had buildings that are historic sites and they're like, ain't happening. Forget it. So there's reasons you can't do a cutout or something. The next thing is, okay, well, ideally, let's try a trap out because that's less maybe stressful or whatever you look on. It takes less effort, I guess. I don't know. Look at it however you want.
It's less invasive.
Yeah. And so you go in and you tell them, okay, it's this timeline process, say anywhere between 3 and 9 weeks. I know we all use kind of different areas of depending on time frames. And they look at you with these eyes that are huge with panic and like, I got to deal with this for, 3 or 9 more weeks, At what point do you say, as a professional, I want to keep this going, or no, I'm not going to do it if I can't do it in my time frame? Or you've got a customer and you say, well, okay, that eliminates it from a full trap out, and that's where we go to a forced abscond or some other method. What is your time frame on a trap out dealing with paying customers with expectations and doing a proper so-called trap out versus having to use other shorter term or more immediate methods?
Well, I'll say this. When I first got into this, there was a lot of this that I just didn't understand, and I've learned as I've gone. I've had a very, very good situation for me because I had a mentor who has been doing this for so long that he gave me point of views that I don't know that I would have thought about it myself. And, here's the brown nose and let's get him a milkshake. But the guy that I'm talking about just happens to be hanging out on the podcast, Mr. JP the B-Man. Okay, so I said it. But all said and done with,
Really?
Yes, seriously. I know. Listen, I got to give.
Wow.
This is that once in a while I'm going to give him a little props. Now, that's all said and done with. From this point on, it's all straight back to business, jumping away. All right. If I can't, I had one recently that I looked at, and it was, when I do bee removals, I look at cost versus benefit. Benefit to the customer, to the bees, and the cost of what it's going to for that customer. So when I'm looking at something, I personally, unless it's in like a brick fireplace, something that is just going to cost thousands of dollars to repair, if I can't do the job properly and the customer is saying, I don't want to pay that, it costs too much, I don't want to do these repairs, well, at this point, it's your problem, not mine. I'm giving you an option. My job is to come to your location to remove a problem. The problem is a beehive in your space. This, I can only inform you on the what could happen if you don't remove them, what can happen if you choose to go down the road of exterminating them, and if it's not within my parameters of the proper way of doing it, I can walk away. Right. And in informing your customer or friend or neighbor that this is the proper way of doing it, I feel that the education side of what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, helps people understand the bigger picture, and it gives them enough meat to make the right decision. I've had a lot of people that they're scared to death right out of the gate. I'm going to cut a hole in your wall. I'm going to cut a hole in your ceiling. And after you've explained your process on how you're going to go about it, and they become more comfortable with me or you, they then realize what all's going on. And when a person is educated, they are a lot more apt to understand and go along with your solution as opposed to what they were before you got there. And I'm going to give you this example. 2 or 3 days ago, I had a customer call. They said they had bees in a fireplace. They've had one beekeeper come and say, we'll have to do a trap out. Another one come along and said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to cut brick out of your fireplace, and it's going to cost you, by the time he starts talking to brick mason, it's going to cost him $3,000 to fix what the beekeeper had to remove. I was the fifth beekeeper that showed up. When I assessed the situation, the construction, the different things that I was presented with, I then turned around and asked the customer this one thing. I said, can I go up in your attic? He said, yeah, go ahead. The clue was that this customer told me that they had built the fireplace 5 years after they built the house. So I don't know what epiphany that I had, but I went up in the attic because I wanted to see, did they brick up the side where the fireplace met the wall? I got up in the attic and all I saw was soundboard. Soundboard is like an insulation board, but there was just soundboard there where there should be brick. So I took my drill and I drilled a little hole through. Sure enough, I put my inspection camera through, and I dead centered the hive of bees. So there was no brick to the inside. So the solution to this was not a trap out. What the solution was that I had to spend 5 hours in a guy's attic in the heat and actually cut a hole in this void space to remove the bees.
So you're talking about good assessment is what you're talking about. And that's a natural thing, or should be. But what I'm trying to get more to is you're looking at a trap out. You have a customer that's saying, hey, I don't have 9 weeks. I've got this going on. And if you tell them, I know you and I talked about, time frame wise, could be as quick as maybe 3 weeks, more likely longer, 6 to 9 weeks, maybe, depending on how long, the whole process takes, getting the bees and the generations that emerge, et cetera. So you look at them and they say, okay, this process with what I'm left with, 9 weeks for a trap out, and like you said, less stressful, less whatnot on the bees. And they look at you and say, that's just a no can do. Okay, how is that when you jump to a force abscond or as an alternate? Where are you bringing in going from trap out to other more immediate method, or do you just say, if I can't do the trap out, then I'm done? You call somebody else. Because,
your next question to the customer is, respectfully, sir or ma'am, but why is this 9 week time frame an issue? Now, granted, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm not going to give them the issue, but I'm going to throw this out here to you beekeepers who are listening to this. Depending on location and the type of bees that you got, you could be in the middle of Texas in Africanized bee land, and you turn around and do a trap out down there, and now you've got a bunch of really pissed off bees that can't get back into their home, and you got a box sitting there. There could be some safety issues there, so just make sure that you're understanding safety concerns when you decide to do a trap out in anything around a location. Now, that being said,
good point.
I want to understand what their problem is with the 9 week window. The reasons could be legitimate. What if John Doe turns around and says, well, my house is up for sale. I got these bees in there, and I can't be sitting on my house for the next 9 weeks waiting to sell it while you got a beehive on the side of the house. There's a great example of, that comes back to the scenario of, but this is the only way, because, and we're getting to the point where as the beekeeper, we've decided we can't do the cutout. I mean, there's the balance. It's, I'm suggesting to do a cutout, but you don't want to pay to fix this. Okay, so we understand that part. But when the customer says, no, I can't wait the 9 weeks, it's, you want me to talk frank about it, I'll say it this way. The bees belong to the customer until they're done. Whether anybody, this is either going to ruin me on Facebook, or it's going to be an understanding situation. But I'm going to say it this way: your job is to remove a problem. So let's think about what we're doing here. You're removing bees, but you're not removing comb. So if you successfully remove the greatest amount of bees in a short amount of time, you're still leaving behind the roach bait. Please understand this, to all you out there that are listening to this. What is left behind in a trap out is comb, honey, pollen.
Right.
Small hive beetle, roach bait. Now you can seal the hole back up from the outside the way the bees are getting in there, but the cockroaches are coming. So in all reality, all the tree hugging, bee loving people out there, this is a bee remover reality. You're going to leave something behind there that a pest control man is going to have to deal with. So if you're in a short time frame of the 2 to 3 week window, if you get that much, then you need to inform your customer that, which should have been informed on the trap out to start with, that this is roach bait. Now you're going to have to turn around and get your contract with the local pest control guy, inform him of what's going on so that they can do the best job they can to keep you from having an infestation of more bugs. And if at the end of this conversation you've removed the greatest amount of bees that you can, then at some point you may end up having to do something drastic with that void space that an insect exterminator person would have to probably, do. All I'm saying is that you get as many bees out of there as you possibly can, and then you turn it over to the exterminator. And that's about the best that I can say. I hope you don't hate me for that answer, but I mean, it's a reality.
Oh, we have so many other reasons to hate you. Why would we hate you for that?
Gotcha. Was that yours, Tony?
That was me.
Finally, after what, 16 weeks now, yes. Finally, you forgot to turn off your ringer. I love it. Well,
it happens.
I mean, the thing is, we're all out here trying to save bees as a colony. Okay, so in that, if you now we can talk more about the time frames. I personally, you asked me this earlier. I personally am saying 9 weeks on a bee removal. Right. I mean, on a trap out. And here's the math, which Tony and I were talking about beforehand. If a swarm of bees moves into a void space today, all right, as you're listening to this, there's a swarm that moves into a void space in John Doe's house. You show up tomorrow. Now, first question is was there previously a hive there and they've got 5 pounds of bees that just moved in on 6 feet of comb, or was there never bees here and this is the first time and they moved into this void and you got 5 pounds of bees there? There's a difference. The first difference to me is that they have to build the home, meaning the comb, and there's a slower start that's going to happen versus 5 pounds of bees that move into a void where there was comb before. If they move in there and the comb was not destroyed by wax moths and they've got something to work with, and as a remover, I've seen it a lot more than not that the wax moths didn't come in and destroy it. The bees started over again, so they've got a lot more already there, and they're going to start up a lot sooner in the production of brood, blah, blah, blah. But you're still handling it the same way. You're doing a trap out. If they just moved in, then you set your trap up out. You can get the majority of those bees out very quickly because they brought no proteins with them, no pollens. So every time that a bee leaves and doesn't come back, another bee has to step up tomorrow. So we can get those bees out a lot quicker. But if this is an established colony that's been there for more than one season, and I'm talking one flow season, I don't care if they moved in last fall or they just moved in March and it's now June. They've had a full season to develop, brood and their numbers and put up food. So they've got in there, and here's the numbers. It's an established colony. Today you put your trap out. The queen is laying an egg today. Understand that the old timers would say you put up a cone, you go back about 2 weeks later because why? Well, because we don't see any bees coming out of it, so we must have got them all. But the stories are you never get a queen. Now remember this, folks. You're hearing, you've read it before. You can't get a queen in a trap out. I say horse mess. The reason that the old timers said that you couldn't get a queen was because they robbed bees from void spaces. It took them 2 weeks to get all the foragers out. And then when they came back and no bees were coming out, they said they were done. when we look at the cycle of a queen lays an egg today, it takes 21 days for that worker to hatch. That is 21 days, but we pulled our trap after 14. So what did we do wrong? Well, we just locked up a whole bunch of nurse bees into somebody's wall. That's the first problem. The second thing is that in 21 days, when those bees hatch, they're going to go through the process of being cleaner bees, nurse bees, house bees, whatever their process is until they do their orientation flights. So there's at least another 2 weeks, 14 days. So now that's a total of 5 full weeks to get the egg that was laid the day you put your cone out. 5 full weeks to get that bee to get its butt out the cone and do an orientation flight to realize, y'all locked the door and ain't nobody let me in. How am I supposed to get back in here? I know I came out this tube, but I can't get back in. What did I do wrong? And that bee will then have to take up with your box full of bees that you got hanging out there on the side of the tree, the wall, or whatever. So that's a 5-week window. Well, guess what? How many more bees are coming out behind that in that 5-week window of, 3 weeks after you set your cone, there's still bees in there, all right, that they're just now emerging. So that's where I throw that established hive, established colony, you're looking at about 9 weeks.
Right. Well, now
I hope you guys are taking notes because I just threw a lot out there.
It's all right. It's this part of the thing. But now, here's one thing that I think is not being fully considered in that situation, the scenario, because you're given a scenario based on the raw natural behavior. Okay.
Yes.
What we're talking about at least in my trap house is, for example, I will try to use things, and the conventional advice is to use a lure, something to draw those bees out before they have to go through that whole process. You're wanting to draw, so a lot of for example, one of the main recommendations of doing a trap out is to put a frame of brood in there, because the brood will draw, not only will it keep the workers busy, that the foragers that are returning from foraging, but the scent will draw those nurse bees, etc., up and out of the nest into their extended, and I'm using air quotes, extended nest into your trap out box. Also, consequently, the idea is you have a greater chance of drawing the queen out, because again, the brood pheromone has that effect of drawing the queen to say, oh, well, if there's young brood over here, we have that brood pheromone scent, then there's other spaces perhaps to lay around that. So ideally, or the conceptually, the idea is the scent, the pheromones, the lures, the bait we use, so to speak, will help draw the queen and those nurses out before that whole the natural process of going from nurse to worker to forager has to be gone through. So it shortens that time in the long run, hopefully. And again, this is largely a lot of ifs in there. But ideally, and that throws kind of a kink in that natural process, because the minute we throw, baits or lures, to start attracting those workers and that queen out, you start shortening that amount of time, because if the queen does come out earlier, well, she's not laying anymore in the tree, which means you don't have the second wave or third wave or whatever. If you get those nurse bees coming out to take care of the larva scent that they smell, they're going to be leaving. And partially that means if there's any larva that was left in there that because they can't get back in, those are larvae that may die. They won't make the full process to get capped and all that. So you got a lot of different factors happening there in luring them out and try to get them all out sooner versus what's left behind. And that's part of that, also that part of the problem where you're talking about leaving your roach bait, because there's all of those things that accumulate into that. But the idea is to shorten that big window to a shorter one by luring that queen and those the ones that can't fly, luring them out with the smell of the brood. So I think that's related. It's definitely a part of the process.
Okay. When talking about trap outs, people need to understand that there's two different, well, there's probably more, but the two main methods when doing trap outs is A, setting a cone up and a box as close to that cone as you possibly can. Now, when you set the cone out, the bees literally come down out of the cone and they go out and they fly around. But when they come back, and in my experience, those bees are, I use a long cone. The cone that I use is about 18 inches long. It's all hardware mesh and it's open. I do not tape up and try to extend this cone out and everything else. And here's why. I want the bees get confused. They don't see the way we do. They literally see things, my understanding, is just like you look at a frame of cone, that octagon, multiple cell look and everything. That's how they see things. So when they come out the end of that cone, and remember this, when you make your cone, you want that cone to be big enough for a worker bee to carry out a dead drone. So if you understand that size of a hole, that's as big as you want to make that. Now, you don't want the bees to find that end of that cone so that they can get back into the hole. So there's your extra little side note for making your cone. But you've got your regular trap out with the box sitting next to it. The bees have to then find that and turn that into home. The second would be a Hogan trap out. The Hogan trap out is where you've got you put a hose, a flexible cone, something basically, but now that I understand can be dark. You can use a black plastic pipe, flexible pipe like off of a shop vac. You attach that to the hole they're coming in and out of normally. You take that hose and you run it into your hive, and now you're making that hive almost like an extension. You can work and add the brood and the different things into that hive. So as the bees come out, they're turning that into the new home. In what you're talking about with using the brood pheromone, I think would be great in working in the guides of a Hogan-style trap out. Do you feel that it would work the same as if it was in the other style where it's just a cone and a box attached very nearby?
The exclusion trap out. I believe that it's leaving the brood scent works best in that exclusion one you're talking about, that first one. From my experience, and I'm just speaking from my own experience up here in Nebraska, is that it really works better just to retain the workers because it gives them something to do. It gives them something to focus on and call that home while they're there. They continue doing their thing and they're raising that brood that's in that frame. It holds them to that being home now. And I don't see the brood scent is strong enough without having a closed conduit to the nest, because the scent doesn't carry that well into the nest then. So you're right, it would work best to act as a bait and a lure in that enclosed, you call it a Hogan system. I've seen it referred in a couple of different systems, but very similar to the Hogan system. It's that enclosed tunnel where everything is all part of one, so to speak, an extension. And that's where you get more effectiveness in drawing the scent, drawing the bees out of the tree or the void space rather than that open cone, because then that scent really not going to travel as well. Maybe a little bit, but not as much, I think, to get really in there, because you're not going to, those nurse bees that are flying aren't generally coming close to that entrance enough to get a whiff of that. So you're really just putting the brood in to hold the foragers then, is my opinion.
Well, one of my major concerns in doing any kind of trap out is the possibility of a trap out requires a lot of work. What I suggest to people that are doing trap outs is I set my cone up, I set my box up, and I just leave it set up for about 2 days. I come back after 2 days. I want to see, are the bees finding another way to get back into their hive? Yep. And bees will do that. They will completely ignore your box. And they will try to figure out everything under the sun to get back into where they know is home. So when setting up me personally, when I set up a trap out, I do not add a frame of brood for 2 days, at least 2 days. I want to get a good amount of forager bees out of that hive, and I want them to literally be, when I show up, it's usually at the evening time of day 2 or day 3. So when I come back, there should be a ball of bees hanging there at the base of my trap cone. Now I can take at that point and set a frame of brood into the hive, so I'm not wasting it. If you take a frame of brood and set it in there the day you set your trap up out, there's not really any bees to cover it, unless you're turning around and you're bringing that frame with bees on it. Now, I have seen this. I brought a frame. I did this on my first trap out. I brought a frame of brood with nurse bees on it because obviously, you don't want to chill it or have any issues. I put it in the box, and then I turn around and I come back 2 days later to check on it. There's a small ball of bees hanging up on this lady's eave, and all the bees that were coming out of the trap are hanging literally right underneath my box. I scoop up all those, put them in there, and they started going crazy. They were too stupid to figure out that the box they were hanging on was a place to go.
Let me jump in here. Let me jump in here for a second. Yeah, I'm back.
Hey,
for a few minutes anyway. I don't know if this has been covered, but it's something important I wanted to say earlier. And consider the location where you're doing, not where the bees are located in the building, but consider the location of the trap out you're trying to perform in relation to neighbors and things like that. Like if you're in a residential area, and the reason I'm mentioning this is that bees can get quite pissy sometimes when you're in at least in the preliminary stages, when they come out and they can't get back in, especially if it's a colony that's somewhat aggressive to begin with. So you wouldn't want to set one up and then there's a house right next door and where the kids walk down the sidewalk. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I'd mentioned that earlier, and you were adding a lot of good stuff to that. But setup, location, and safety is a major concern on where to set it up. And the reason I brought that up was because well, you had to go and you dropped out for a few minutes, but that was one thing that you had taught me back in a long time ago. Whether you're doing a bee removal, you're doing a trap out, you're shaking a swarm, have the consideration of your surroundings on what you're doing for the just in case something goes wrong while you're doing that you're not going to turn around and get other people hurt. I mean, I learned back, a few years ago working with JP, we're out in front of this guy's house doing a bee removal and it's 4:00 in the afternoon. There's people walking dogs and kids getting off the bus and, I'm standing there turning around telling people, say, hey, we're doing a bee removal. If you're allergic to bees, step back. And we had some block off tape. But people don't pay attention to what you're doing. They think you're up there painting a trim on this guy's window when you're actually got bees flying around everywhere.
Yeah, I got bees flying all around me right now.
Do any of you guys ever use any signage? Like I have signs. I print signs. I got nice big yard signs like for you stick in the yard, and I have nice big bright red, white, and blue signs. Where, hey, this is a live bee removal. Please stay back, while we take care of the bees and all that. So it kind of gets it's colorful and bright to try to catch your attention. And you're right. Even being bright and colorful and out a distance, they still come right on, but it helps a little bit. Do you guys ever use any signage besides tape?
With you. I normally keep a roll with me.
A roll of the yellow and black tape?
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how many people just walk right under it.
Oh, no, I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
They're like, hey.
It's like, hi, you just stepped over that tape.
It doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. Well, they're on their cell phone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, let me get back to on this one, what I was talking about with the trap out deal. One of my concerns for anybody doing a trap out and whether they've thought about this or not is let's talk about your time frames with laying worker situations. people turn around. The two things I don't do is I only put capped brood, literally capped. I don't want my bees to have any chance of making a new queen when I do a trap out. I want to make sure that at the end of my deal, I've had every opportunity to get the queen out of that void space. So I only use capped brood. I use the lightest colored capped brood that I can, or, the biggest, fattest larva. Now I'll say this is me, but I'm still telling you not to do it.
It's definitely, it's definitely you. That's for sure.
It's okay. but I will turn around and I put the cap brood in there, and I'll put in a frame about every 2 weeks, because in theory it takes about 3 weeks to develop a laying worker. So if I stop by in 2 weeks and I drop a new frame of brood in, then I'm kind of helping keep that suppression down, and so far that's worked for me, which I've never thought about and didn't hear about the pheromone that you were talking about, Tony, and it's something that I'm really I want to try that out. I've got 2 trees right now that is no rush on getting done, and that's actually going to be something I can mess with it, play with. But the point is that if you can get that frame of brood cycled in there, trying to keep the laying workers' desire to come up, I think you'll have a better success at that. But like I said, a lot of people turn around and I hear them say, "Yeah, just throw you a frame of eggs in that and let them make a new queen." Well, then it goes back to that 100-year-old theory that you never get the queen out of the void. Well, you don't know, because A, they made a queen, and B, if that queen ever does come out, due to the fact that after so many weeks the hive weakens up, if it ends up getting taken over by hive beetles and the last of that hive decides to abscond out of that void space, well, her and whatever bees are with her are just pretty much, they're going to pack up and leave, and you never got that queen in the genetics. You just made a new queen out of the genetics you've already had in your yard.
True. Now, hey, real quick, I want to kind of make a little part of the podcast from this point on, because a lot of times we get going and we leave poor Anthony just hanging, because he's just sitting there listening and taking it all in. And he's our representative for all those folks who don't do the kind of stuff we do yet. So I want to give Anthony here a chance to represent the newbies and the folks who are interested in doing stuff that they haven't done before like this. And do you have any ideas, questions, anything like that we haven't covered that would make this we should cover?
Well, I know we're working on a trap out. We have a trap out coming up. And once again, it goes back to the different classes that I've been able to attend this winter and in the spring. When you look at the biology, you see how the biology works with every little thing. Because when we were looking at our trap out earlier, it's in a residential area. Your trap out, I should say.
The trap.
When we were going over the time factor. I
was just saying, we'll share it. It's our trap out.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
I'm flexible that way.
Putting in the biology that I had learned in class. Yeah, and this is my little brown nose portion, kind of like Yappy did to JP. But the class I went to with Tony Sandoval at MCC.
Brown nose? Did I miss something?
Yeah, it's a little bit, But when you put in that biology, it makes sense how Yappy's saying, everything that Yappy said about, up to 9 weeks, because you don't want to leave the generations behind. And I don't know, it keeps going back to, and as a new person, it's like, okay, a lot of this is sounding more and more like work, but it's working for a good cause, and I like that. You really have to, you can't be a beekeeper and watch videos and just read a few magazines and think that you are able to do all the aspects of beekeeping, of professional beekeeping, I should say. When I say all the aspects, I'm talking about cutouts and trap outs. Personally, I don't want to work on nobody's house. I was good at destroying them. But as far as putting...
Fireman speech.
I'm gonna go.
Are you saying, Anthony, that your inner fireman would end up just chopping a big hole in there?
Probably. Oh, speaking of that, just to let you guys know, yeah, I finally got popped messing around with the hive. And you say how the bees were, you said something about your bees were too stupid with the box. Well, I got stung 3 times before I realized I was actually stung. Yeah, and then I was like, okay, what does it feel like? It honestly feels like, Yappy, and you know this from the things I've seen and the videos I've seen, like when a hot coal falls between your turnout gear and hits your neck. When I got popped, I was like, but I didn't run. Just letting y'all know I represent.
I tell you, the ones that get me are it's like the older bees. I'm telling you, this is complete theory. Now, Tony, you are the book readingest beekeeper that I know, but I'm telling you, nurse bees come out. They got stingers, but they have not had time to ferment that venom. But those guard bees and old foragers, they've had so much time for that venom to hang out in that little gland that by the time they sting me, when that thing hits, it feels like somebody took, a sword and put that son of a gun in the fire and then decided to poke me right in the back of the head. Well, I'm telling you, there's a difference.
Now, I do both. I in my business, I do honeybee removals and I do bumblebee removals, relocations, okay? And when I was doing honeybee removals, I thought that was tough enough. Okay, you get in there, and especially if you get a really pissy hive, they come at you and they get a hold of you. You're feeling that, okay? I thought I had it down then, but I'm going to tell you right now, the most docile bee in the field, the little fuzzy bumblebee, she won't do nothing to you out of the way. But you mess with that nest, and the very first time I messed with the relocation, I got hit 35 times. And it felt every one of them suckers, because that hurts.
I think, JP, don't you got a video out about doing a bumblebee removal?
Yeah, it's a little short thing, but it's not an A to Z by any means.
No, listen, I've done one. I had a lady that called me. She said, I've got a guy trying to work on the house. She said, we got bees. And I'm like, okay. I'll be up there tomorrow. So I take this ride out to this location, and I get there, and there's nobody there. And the lady says, if you need me to get you, in the house, blah, blah, blah. So I walk up to this spot where there's supposed to be bees. I don't see nothing. And I call her, and I said, ma'am, I'm not seeing any honeybees. She said, oh, they're there. I seen them coming and going all day yesterday. She said, just put your ear to the wall. I put my ear up to the wall, and I tap it, and it sounds like when you got bees in there, it sounds like this nice little hum of a million little wings all flapping at the same time. It's almost harmony. But the bumblebees, it sounded like a B-52 bomber that was fixing to come right through that wall and hit me in the side of the head. And I was like, oh man. Well, about that time, here comes one of them out of the hive, and it flies around and pops me just bumps me. It didn't sting me, bumps me in the back of the head. So I turned around and realized, I was like, what the crap? So I pulled one board off, and there's this, I don't know, very, let's just say a cantaloupe-sized little nest of bumblebees. And I thought, oh, they're bumblebees. We all love bumblebees. They're good. Oh, so I called JP and I said, JP, tell me again, what am I supposed to do? What do I got to do? So he walks me through a few steps on how to, what to do with these. So I go get this box and I fill it full of grass. All right. And I reach down in there with both hands to pull this nest out. And all of a sudden it was like, yeah, I didn't have no smoke, no suit.
JP, you set him up.
Where's the video of that? That's what I want to see.
I don't like JP no more. No, I don't. So at the end of
that gives me an idea. Next time you come down here, I'm going to have to locate bumblebee nest, and I'll video it, Tony.
There you go.
You go for it, Yappy.
Oh my goodness.
I'll record some of our bumblebee because I usually do about 10 to 15 a year on bumblebees up here. So I'll make sure to get some of them. You'll enjoy those.
I'm telling you, got to.
Yappy,
Anyway,
really, fool me once, Yappy, you won't get fooled again. Okay, don't fall for that.
All right,
no,
guys.
I mean, yeah,
trust
it's.
I'm looking at the clock here, and our time is coming to an end. Unfortunately, we're having a lot of fun, a lot of really good. I love all the information that you guys were able to contribute to the trap out discussion here. I don't think it's something that gets enough attention a lot of times. So this has been awesome. I want to thank all of you guys for taking time out of your day again today. You did terrific. I love everybody being a part of this. Next week we're supposed to have our guest. Well, hopefully that'll work out. Otherwise, we'll make it up as we go along again, and we'll have some fun. So, JP, my man, give you a shout out.
All right, folks. Well, appreciate y'all hanging with us, like always. And if y'all have any questions, just forward them our way. Be more than happy to answer them.
Yappy?
I agree. We're what, 16, 18 weeks into this, and I'm loving every bit of it. I mean, we get in here and we talk about some meat and potatoes, and then, like last week, we just sit there and we talk about ramen noodles. So, I mean, one way or another, you are getting fed a lot of great information. I just don't know if it's nutritious or not. But either way, I just want to say thank you guys for, enjoying our podcast and hanging out with us. And please, if you don't mind, copy the link, share it with some friends, get it out there, let everybody know that we're a bunch of goofball beekeepers that are having a good time. And, we take some time to share this stuff. We hope that we're making it worth your time. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Andy, you got a shout out there, bud?
Oh, yeah. Hey, shall we? You were missed, brother. And mini me or mini you, whatever. Miss
Mini
y'all.
shall we? No. Mini we.
Hey. Yeah, there you go. And don't fall for it, Yappy. Don't fall for it again, But if you do, get it on video.
Get it on video when you do. I hear you.
No kidding,
guys.
really.
Thank you all. And don't ever forget, people, be smart.